What is up, guys? Mike Marlinsky here from Wretched Sound. Changing up the format a little bit today. Want to talk about the new issue of Wretched Sound. The official release date is August 1st, 2022, but it's been out for a little bit now. It is called Wretched Sounds of the Past. It's our 13th printed issue. We release printed issues once a month. And this one focuses on my favorite disbanded Buffalo bands that were active, local bands that were active in the scene when I first entered the scene about 20 years ago. Bands that I quickly fell in love with and who inspired me to make my own music and, start bands of my own and ultimately start up this publication. So, many things had to fall into place in order for this 13th issue of Wretched Sound to happen. In June of 2022, I set out to contact my favorite local bands from yesteryear, the bands that were active during my earlier days as a member of this local music community. And none of the musical outfits participating in this issue are still actively concocting music today. So in order for these pages to be manifested into existence, I had to not only contact the members of these bands, I had to put said members in situations where they would have to converse with their former bandmates. Not all bands end amicably, but luckily, my favorite bands from yesteryear seem to all be on speaking terms in 2022. As a result, with seemingly no music scene drama working against me, compiling all this data into one cohesive story eventually became a breeze. With schedules lining up, bandmates cooperating with one another, and a slew of fond memories resurfacing, I had my 13th issue. So, a million thank yous go out to the members of Sons of AZRAEL, From This Day, Three Below, Phantasm, Drop God, Down the Drain, Union, Herod, and the many other bands of Mike Union Jeffers, Now in Stores Theater Nocturne, and Skunk. It's my absolute distinct pleasure to present to you Wretched Sounds of the Past. I've always looked up to Fred Dombrowski as not only a frontman, but a human being. If you're unfamiliar with Fred, you'll learn why I hold him in such high esteem over the course of the interview in the Wretched Sounds of the Past issue. Fred's limitless energy and positivity were sorely needed in the music scene back in the days of the bands he's best remembered for. Three Below, which is early metalcore, active in the late 90s, and From This Day, which I lovingly call deafened metalcore, active from 2004 to 2009. Fred provided the emotional balance all music communities need. There was a lot of negativity being spewed in and around the community back then, and Fred was there to counter it just by being himself. Those who know Fred will always be grateful that they got to exist on Earth at the same time as him. I always say that this band was the equivalent of having dissection in our backyard, and I mean it every time. Theater Nocturne were conjurers of spooky-sounding melodic death metal riffs and harmonies, all blackened to perfection, and eerily reminiscent of Norwegian winters. The vocals were hauntingly raspy, the drums were chaotic, yet raining, and it was all just a perfectly orchestrated cacophony of nocturnal metal sounds. I love this band, and I still listen to them to this day. And on a side note, their love of cassette tapes and their pressing of their earlier records on cassette was solely responsible for my currently outrageous tape collection. I recently got together with Eric, the guitarist and founding member, who was more than happy to chat with me about the old days. When I first joined the local music community of Buffalo, New York back in the summer of 2001, Sons of AZRAEL were already in their infancy and preparing for what would become quite the career over the course of the following decade. I saw an early incarnation of the band at a backyard show, an incarnation that would later morph into the Conjuration of Vengeance lineup of 2007. So from left to right of the image you just saw, Tony Lorenzo, who unfortunately has passed, R.I.P., Greg DiPasquale, Joe Syracuse, who has also passed on, R.I.P., Derek Sadkowski, and Robert Steinwandel. Over the course of those 10 years, I watched this band go through a few lineup changes, do a few national tours, and even get signed to Ironclad Recordings, who had a distribution deal with Metal Blade Records. That was in 2007 for their record deal, which would ultimately be followed that year by the release of their debut record, The Conjuration of Vengeance, still in my top 5 local releases to this day. A few years later, they released their sophomore album, Scouting the Boneyard, that was in 2010, before calling it quits out of necessity. Around a year later, guitarist and founding member Tony Lorenzo was robbed and shot, paralyzing him from the waist down. That was in October of 2011. 1 year after that, vocalist Joe Syracuse would die of a drug overdose. That was in October of 2012. Tony Lorenzo would later die of medical complications related to the 2011 shooting in March of 2017. A fondly remembered band, known well by the community for making Buffalo so proud, had such a tragic ending. But in remembrance of those days, in May of 2017, an event celebrating the life of Tony Lorenzo was facilitating at Waiting Room Buffalo. Sons of AZRAEL, a tribute to, as in a tribute band more or less, would perform a short 4-song surprise set in memory of Joe and Tony. I was fortunate enough to be asked to perform lead vocals for that set, and I will forever remember it as the live performance of my life. No other live performance of mine is compared to it, and none ever will. Now, in July of 2022, I had another opportunity to get together with Derek Sadkowski, the drummer from Sons of AZRAEL, from that original lineup anyway. Only this time, it was to discuss the following interview. And for those interested in even more of this material, you can find a 2-part podcast interview with Greg, Robert, and Derek on the Wretched Sound YouTube channel. The 2 parts total about 3 hours of content. Mixing hardcore with nu metal, Drop God got their start in Buffalo in the late 90s. They were poised to put their own unique spin on a style of music ever growing in popularity at the time, and in doing so created yet another staple in the history of heavy music in Western New York. Fronted by Michael Woods, who some might remember from Down the Drain, Grady's Axe, Barrises, and Warsaw, Drop God probably wrote one of the first demos I ever heard when first entering the local music scene. And since I was big into bands like Slipknot, Korn, on local hardcore heroes Snapcase, and yes, even Primer 55 back at high school, I instantly fell in love with Drop God upon first listen. Singer Michael Woods was kind enough to do an interview with me for Wretched Sounds of the Past. A lot of genre descriptors get tossed around when referencing skunk. People look back on the rap rock crossover bands of the 90s and 2000s and use terms like rapcore, rap rock, nu metal, rap metal, etc. When I was brand new to this scene, I found myself at Runways a lot my first full summer of going to local shows. Looking back, this was probably the summer of 2000 or 2001. Runways was the indoor-outdoor venue by the airport in Cheektowaga for those who don't recall or never got to experience it. I'm told that the outdoor stage still exists, but it's been repurposed. Anyway, Skunk, that was my first Skunk experience. They played the indoor stage that summer, completely destroyed the standing room with their stage presence and volume alone. At first I talked shit to myself over seeing 2 vocalists on stage. When I was younger, I always had a thing about that, but I've learned to stop prejudging bands with more than one standalone vocalist. At the time, I was expecting one singer doing all the work, while the other guy just held the mic jumping around to hype the crowd, maybe. Tossing out a syllable or two. But nope. Skunk was as devastating as they come for this genre. My tastes have certainly evolved over the last 20 years, but I'll always have a special place in my heart for the bands that forged this style of the rap rock crossover. In fact, I remember hearing Linkin Park for the first time when Hybrid Theory at first dropped, wishing they sounded more like Skunk. Mike Union Jeffers has become a household name in the Buffalo metal, hardcore, and punk scenes. From being every band's drummer to spearheading indie labels to practically writing the book on band life, Mike has had a pretty busy and diverse career behind the drum kit. I'm probably being redundant by now with my where do I begin bullshit, but I honestly never know when trying to cover decades worth of material. Phantasm really set a few bars for me when I started playing shows back in the early 2000s. Energetic stage presence and ability to seamlessly bridge dissonant and melodic riffs, live sound, and songs that were equally catchy and chaotic. With the inclusion of Phantasm in this issue, I've now highlighted the full trio of bands responsible for my sticking with band life: Sons of AZRAEL, 3 Below, Slash, From This Day, and Phantasm. I still love their Romancing Zelda demo to this day. Recently, vocalist Wayne Kubiak and guitarist Corey Carraz were kind enough to throw some input at me on life from Phantasm's perspective from 2001 to 2004. Who remembers Now in Stores? To wrap this up, I had to reach out to Angelo Andrus, the guitarist at Now in Stores, to find out not only what the hell he's been up to these past 18 years, but to rein in the Now in Stores guys for this very special throwback issue of Wretched Sound. And you wouldn't believe how upset I was to learn that Now in Stores had reunited for one show in 2016 at Mohawk Place, and I had no idea. Literally, I didn't hear about it from a single soul, but nevertheless, I guess I'm here reliving it now. Now in Stores were Buffalo's own Orange County boys. They were going all in on the classic sounds of Avenged Sevenfold and Atreyu long before it was cool to do so. So yeah, once again, if you're interested in checking out Wretched Sounds of the Past, you can only check out these interviews in the physical copy right now, which is available on Amazon. I might have some at local stores like record stores and a few consignment shops in the Buffalo and Rochester area during August, but I'm not 100% certain on that right now. It's already actually time for me to get started on building the September issue. But you can get Wretched Sounds of the Past on Amazon. A lot of work went into this, so if you are interested in supporting Wretched Sound in any way, the best way to do that is to subscribe to us here on YouTube, follow us on WordPress for articles, that's wretched-sound.com, and also pick up a physical copy of the magazine. And I will leave a link to all this stuff in the description. These interviews will eventually be online. We never expect anyone to support us monetarily. Just following us on all platforms helps a lot. So these interviews will eventually be online, just like all the others, but they usually trail. So when I'm ready to release the September issue towards the end of August, that's when you'll start seeing the Wretched Sounds of the Past stuff drop online. So it's usually about a month after the physical magazine comes out that you'll start seeing those same interviews pop up on our WordPress. So, okay, I'll leave you with that. Do with this what you will. Thanks for watching this video, checking this out. Let me know what you think of this new format. I might do a few more videos like this where you don't have to see my ugly face. So yeah, just drop me a line in the comments and let me know if you want me to do a few more like this for the magazines or anything else in the future. And once again, hope you'll subscribe and keep following along with what we do. Not slowing down anytime soon. Alright, take it easy, guys. Thanks for watching.